Sportscast, November 15th. Welcome to another episode. Please subscribe on all our channels, YouTube, Periscope, iTunes, and if you're in iTunes, please leave a rating and review. It will help us out tremendously on the ranking. Let's try to get it up in the sports category update. And, of course, you can visit us on thesportscast.net, thesportscast.net. Episode is brought to you by Insta Bible app. Create a picture, create a verse, put it together, share it to the world. Myles Garret made news overnight, Thursday Night Football. He used a helmet as a weapon towards Mason Rudolph. And to talk to us a little bit about the Steelers and the Browns, and maybe also some Myles Garret, Ryan Christa, welcome back.
San Diego, it's good to be here. Happy Friday out to sports world. Thursday night brought a lot of drama, to a game that was probably lacking much drama, closing moments of a game that the Browns absolutely needed to stay in the playoff race, a team they hadn't beaten in a very long time. And instead of talking about that, we're talking about Myles Garret nearly killing Mason Rudolph last night. A very bizarre, there was some physicality in that game, there's no love lost between these two teams. Earlier in the game, we had Randall was ejected from the Browns on a hit to the head. Two teams, they've had history, but, I didn't see this coming. There wasn't, okay, something might break out. Sometimes when you see this, you can see the game getting very chippy, but I didn't see that, during, the last couple minutes of the game, it kind of looked like the Steelers, kind of just getting out of this game and moving on, and Myles Garret had something else, was he provoked, to bring everybody back who hadn't seen it, when the last plays of the game, Mason Rudolph drops back, throws, an incomplete pass, and then gets, I think, late hit by Myles Garret. He took exception to it. It looked like they were jawing, maybe a little bit of pushing on the ground. Something you see kind of, a lot, Mason Rudolph had a rough game, probably frustrated, but Myles Garret didn't appreciate, him, his aggressiveness towards him, and grabbed, Rudolph's helmet and, try to strike him on, Mason Rudolph's head without a helmet on, with his own helmet, and after that, Pouncey from the Steelers, went in and attacked Garret, and then, ended up, kicking and punching. Both of those guys got ejected, but it was definitely, I think, uncalled for, disrespectful, kind of borderline disgusting, really, it's got to say, stuff like this does not belong in sports and definitely not in football, Obviously, football is a violent game, but you've got to have respect for, for your opponent. And if you do something like that, you really don't have respect for yourself or your team, and that kind of goes to the point of Freddie Kitchens and the Browns and what's their major weakness on discipline. This team is, commits a lot of stupid penalties and really keeping, if you look at all the games they lost, the difference in winning and losing is their undisciplinedness, and that could keep them away from the playoffs. They're 4-6 right now and hanging on by a thread. They've really got two wins this week, beat the Bills and now the Steelers, but that's not what they're talking about. Now they got this distraction. We'll see what happens, coming up. The league has already said that Garrett's suspended for the rest of this year, and probably, maybe into next year we'll hear, probably as the summer goes on, what the suspension is. And I believe Pouncey got 3 games, and then another player for the Browns, after, Mason Rudolph got attacked by Garret, another guy comes in and pushes him to the ground, he got suspended for a game.
The NFL announced Friday that the Cleveland Browns defensive end, Myles Garret, has been suspended for the rest of this season, including the playoffs, should the Browns make it. And it will have to meet with the commissioner's office before reinstated in 2020. Garret ripped the helmet off Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Mason Rudolph and clubbed him in the head with it in the final seconds of last night's game, Thursday Night Football. Myles Garret just released a statement, and he said, I made a terrible mistake. I lost my cool, and what I did was selfish and unacceptable. I know that we all are responsible for our actions, and I can only prove my true character through my actions moving forward. I want to apologize to Mason Rudolph, my teammates, our entire organization, our fans, and to the NFL. I know I had to be accountable for what happened, learn from my mistakes, and I fully intend to do so. What are your thoughts about his apology?
It sounds nice, but, that's a prepared statement. He's, trying to protect himself and the organization, And in the end, he wants to go back and play football. I think that what's sad is, he's one of the best players, defensive players on their team, but not just on their team. He's going to be one of the best, defensive players in the league. He's strong, he's quick, and creates a lot of havoc for opponent's offense. So he wants to get back on the field, he wants to go out there, he was in line, in a couple of years to get a huge contract, from the Browns or whoever, to be playing football, and now is he going to get that contract? Because you don't know what type of person he is, so you know what type of player he is, but, are you going to be willing to give him all that money? It's just not a good look for the Cleveland Browns, an organization that has a lot of black eyes, and this is just another one.
Myles Garret played college football at Texas A&M. He was drafted by the Cleveland Browns, first overall in the 2017 NFL draft. He's only a rookie and a half. This is his sophomore season, but he's also a hothead. He's had issues before. Do you think this is a wake up call for him?
Yeah, this is the third season of Santiago, but he was a rookie 2 years ago.
That's right.
Year they drafted Baker Mayfield #1. He got fined, earlier this year with a hit on the Jets quarterback. That's a hit they needed a fine for, but it was within the framework of football, but again, when the quarterbacks, the NFL is going to protect them, and that's just the case of that. This is just beyond that. This is, self-respect, respect for the game, respect for the football, and this is just a bad look for football in general, Santiago, where you look at the numbers of kids playing youth football, and it keeps on declining, because it's a rough game, and now is this just an instance of, the game just getting a little bit out of control, and this may, affect more kids playing football?
That's something that parents got to decide what to do. Football is a very physical sport, but fights in the NFL happen. Don't get me wrong, but not. I mean, I haven't. I don't remember the very last time a big fight happened.
Yeah, you get scrums, you get physicality, but in the end, the players usually respect each other, and, nothing usually amounts to any of these fights, because who's going to punch anybody when they got a helmet on? And that's what made this different, you had a person, who couldn't protect themselves because they didn't have a helmet on, and then let's use that helmet as a weapon. I mean, Santiago, if you did that on the street, you'd find yourself in jail, and I don't know if that's out of question right now. I don't know if he'll get charged with anything. If you remember years ago, there's a hockey player named Todd Bertuzzi who ended up serving time in jail for a hit using a hockey stick as a weapon, so on the ice during the game. So there's some precedent for that.
Mason Rudolph's agent will be looking into investigation and maybe submitting a police report. So we'll see a possible lawsuit as well. So we'll see things in Cleveland, also in Pittsburgh. Mason Rudolph, a quarterback, and probably the heir to Ben Roethlisberger, the future of the Steelers. So we'll see where things are panning out. Of course, Browns got to win, but don't know why Myles Garret got into an altercation situation. Altercation is a strong word. Anyways, let's move on to college football. As predicted, Florida pummeled through Vanderbilt 56-0. We weren't surprised. Vanderbilt hasn't been in Florida since 1988. So, are you feeling pretty confident?
I think I said on a podcast last week it wasn't going to be, if we were going to beat Vanderbilt, it was going to be by how much. That team, playing with their third string quarterback, just posed no threat offensively to the Gators, and the Gators, Vanderbilt doesn't have a strong defense, but to put 56 points on any team in your conference is quite the showing. And San Diego, frankly, mistakes in the first half of that game, they could have gotten to 70 points in that game. They left a lot of points on the board in the first half.
Like Oregon, Nevada, 72-0.
Yeah. So we lost, 2 interceptions in the first, half, in the red zone. So there was mistakes and there's room to grow. And, this week's game against Missouri is going to be quite the test and kind of a statement to, to show the rest of the SEC, that, they're still a good team, and they may not go at the SEC championship game or be a playoff contender, but they're still going to be a force to be reckoned with because Missouri's beaten the Gators the last 2 years quite convincingly, and the Gators have always, struggled against Missouri and Missouri's. So I think they've only, since they joined the SEC, only beaten Missouri one time on the road. So it's definitely an important game, because you definitely want to get to a Year 6 bowl game. And if they lose this, they definitely won't get to that, But so there's still a lot to play for, and there's still that some chance that Georgia loses the next 2 games, and they're going to be able to go to the SEC championship. So there's a lot on the table. They showed the country last week in the SEC that they're able to shake off that Georgia loss. And Kyle Trask, while throwing 2 interceptions, threw the ball very well. Moved through it a lot of different receivers, got everybody involved. It kind of showed when how much talent this team really has on offense. They still struggle running the ball, yes, but this passing game is taken, under Dan Mullen, has taken a lot of big strides.
Kelly Bryant, the biggest name from Missouri. I'm sure you're very you probably know a whole lot about him. Hasn't been healthy for weeks. Was in a shutout, lost to Georgia, and while he's playing against the Gators, he hasn't been himself. Like Ryan was saying, 2 years in a row, Missouri has beat him, but I think this Florida team could handle Missouri. Way more talented, and Florida has they do have a thing to play for. Like they do have a chance to make it to the SEC championship, even though maybe Ryan doesn't believe so. But Georgia is playing Auburn this weekend, Ryan, and Auburn does have a chance to beat Georgia in Auburn.
Yeah, so what I like about the timing of this game, San Diego, Auburn and Georgia play at 3:30. Florida and Missouri play at noon. So, if it's vice versa and Georgia beats Auburn, that kind of deflates me because now there's not, you don't have that to play for. But, with this team playing before, you don't know what happens in the next game. So you're going to go out there and bust your butts and try to get that victory because that's something, as I said, it's all on the table. They don't control their destiny, but it's still there to play for, and you're right about that. But most importantly, in college football, the games mean so much, San Diego, because you only get so many of them. And in conference games, you want to win as many conference games as possible because that's pride. So whether the game, means something or not, anytime you go on the field, you want to represent yourself and, the Gator brand.
Looking at Georgia, obviously Florida has a small destiny, but they depend on Georgia on losing. They got Auburn this weekend. Not easy. They get Texas A&M in Georgia, and they get Georgia Tech. Can they lose 2 out of the 3?
I just say this, San Diego. The Georgia Tech game means nothing because that's a non-conference game. So Georgia's got to lose these next 2 games. Yes, I think there's I would say 50. I say about 50-50 that, Georgia and Auburn, the game's in Auburn, and, for various reasons, Auburn, should play well in this game. Georgia's dealing with tons of injuries, especially on their offense line, and, what's Auburn's strength? Their defensive line. So they're going to be able to get pressure, stop the run, make life tough on Jake Fromm and Swift. But, what have we seen? We've seen Bo Nix for Auburn really struggle in big games. But Santiago, this is the first big game that's going to be played at Jordan-Hare Stadium. If you remember their games against Florida and LSU, where he struggled mightily, those games were on the road. And even against Texas A&M, where they eventually won the game, he didn't play necessarily a great game. He didn't play a great game against Oregon at the beginning of the season. That was a neutral site game. So, in his home stats, well, not against superior competition, have been a lot better at home than on the road. So, I expect Bo Nix, to put up, solid numbers in the game tomorrow. Kind of go throw for throw with, with I think one of the best, if not the best, quarterback in college football, Jake Fromm.
Can Auburn be the spoiler?
Absolutely, Santiago. I just don't hold my breath that next week Texas A&M can be the spoiler and have the Gators get in by beating Georgia on the road. But that's here nor there, and that's next week's discussion. But this week, yes, I told you 50-50. Georgia's a great team. They got a lot of talent. And they, when they play with talent, I don't know if Auburn can win. But remember this game 2 years ago, Santiago. We're looking almost at the same situation. Remember 2017, Santiago. Auburn, a two-loss team coming into this game, really pummeled Georgia. And what did they do? 2 weeks later, they went and they pummeled Alabama. And then they go and play Georgia with a chance to go to the playoffs and end up losing. Georgia and Alabama make it to the playoffs. But so in odd number of years, Auburn really has a chance to finish with a statement because they both get Georgia and Alabama at home. And they definitely, under Gus Malzahn, do play better at home.
Looking at the playoff rankings that came out Tuesday night, LSU is number 1, Ohio State is number 2, Clemson is number 3, Georgia number 4. Looking outside in, Alabama, Oregon, and Utah. How do you see the rankings?
I think the rankings right now, they're basically to show what's important to the committee. The only rankings that matter is that that one in December after the season's over. So, but what I know from watching the games and knowing the schedule left is Ohio State. While they get records this week, they got their 2 big games coming up against State and Michigan. They win those, and then the Big East or Big Ten championship, we know they're in. Clemson probably got the easiest road to the playoff. They went out. They got Wake Forest coming up, which will be a tough game. But after that, smooth sailing into the conference championship game, which still wouldn't pose too much threat. They win and they're in. LSU, obviously, they got their major hurdles are over with. They just got to make sure they don't have any brain farts, especially against a team like Ole Miss on the road this week. I would not be surprised to see that game being played in the fourth quarter as a highly competitive game. This is going to be Mississippi's Super Bowl coming up this week at a home game with, the number 1 team in the country. But other than that, LSU will cruise until the championship game. Where they'll face either most likely Georgia, but we can hold on hope, Santiago, that the Gators will be there. But a
lot of variables for the Gators. They got to win out, have Georgia lose twice, and win the SEC championship against LSU.
Yeah. So anyway, we know LSU, we know Ohio State, and we know Clemson really control their destiny. Teams that, like Georgia, Georgia probably controls their destiny. They went out, and beat Auburn and win the SEC East, their SEC championship against LSU, presumably. They're probably going. So they kind of control their destiny. But we still got, these teams that, we talk about all these other teams, but we can't forget about Baylor and Minnesota because they're still there. They're kind of like
they're in the running.
In the room and Santiago, they're in the running. They're undefeated. Yes, their non-conference schedule isn't there, but
yeah, and Minnesota has Iowa and Baylor has Oklahoma this weekend, so things could be interesting.
Major game. Yes, I mean, and I think, you look at most experts, and probably, Minnesota after that major game last weekend, against Penn State, you expect, a letdown on the road against Iowa.
Huge win.
Do not be surprised if you see them lose. And then obviously Baylor playing Oklahoma. I know it's at home, but does Baylor have enough offense against Oklahoma? They play great defense, Baylor, and I know it's actually more on the state team in the Big 12 plays great defense, but they do. But do they have enough offense right now? They're struggling. They've won a couple of games in the last moment against lesser quality teams. So do not be surprised if Baylor loses. But until those two teams lose, they control their own destiny into that playoffs too, Santiago.
Everyone controls their own destiny, including Ryan. Let's move on to the NFL. The Denver Broncos broke a 2-game losing streak by beating the Cleveland Browns 24-19 at home, led by replacement quarterback Brendan Allen. In his first NFL regular season game, Allen went 12 of 20 for 175 yards with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. Is Brendan Allen the future of the Broncos?
Probably not, Santiago, but he's holding on the fort. Drew Lock is back practicing, so it's only a matter of time, before, we're looking at the future of the Broncos, hopefully, and that's former Missouri quarterback Drew Lock, who got a couple wins against my Gators, but luckily he won't be suiting up for the Tigers tomorrow. But he is a second-round draft pick of the he's going to get a shot sooner than later. But so this week, we got Brandon Allen going up into the great tundra of Minnesota this week to face a very well-balanced Vikings team. It's going to take a great effort for the Broncos to be in this game, but they played earlier this year. They played the Packers very tough up in Lambeau Field, and almost came up with a victory. So they play. The Broncos got talent on defense, where they play hard on defense. They play well. It's a matter of trying to get offense. And Brandon Allen's not going to light up the scoreboard. As long as he keeps mistake-free, he's going to give the Broncos a chance to win.
The Broncos are definitely looking towards the future. The AFC West. Broncos are 3-6, Chargers are 4-6, Raiders are 5-4, and Chiefs are 6-4. So AFC West is competitive at center level.
Santiago, where Broncos used to, at 3-6. Santiago, they've lost 3 games in the last 15 seconds of the game.
That's not bad.
3 games where they led going into the last minute of the game. The Broncos won 2 of those, and they're right in the driver's seat, Santiago.
They're back in the thick of things.
That's frustrating, but should have quit you with you, Santiago, but...
Something to definitely look at. The NFL is panning out itself. The Ravens are the best team in the... No, not really. Second best team in... Well, maybe the first. It depends who you ask. But we'll see what...
If we're asking our fellow sports host, Justin Riley, they're probably the best team. But I know they beat the Patriots, and they soundly beat the Patriots. But
can they beat the Patriots in New England?
That's the $1 million question, Santiago.
And I don't think that can happen.
I don't think so either.
But the games have to be played, don't they?
Exactly, and you can't think of 2 quarterbacks who play the game totally different between Lamar Jackson and Tom Brady.
I'm sure Belichick will be ready.
I heard a comparison, years ago when the 49ers were striding under Colin Kaepernick. You saw that same type of offense they're running, a college type spread offense. And I see so many similarities, between that Super Bowl run the 49ers had, under Kaepernick and Harbaugh, several years ago, where they ended up losing to the Ravens in the Super Bowl, but where they were just killing teams with this run-based quarterback run offense, because you just don't see it very much in college or NFL football. It's more of a college base. So until teams start figuring out, I think the Ravens will have a chance to make it to at least the AFC Championship against the Patriots.
Well, the games have to be played, so we'll see if the Ravens are the real deal. Playoffs, end of the season. So, anyways, are you ready for game predictions?
Absolutely, Santiago.
Let's Start with a one-loss Alabama at Mississippi State.
I think it's going to be a long day for the Bulldogs and Joe Moorhead. You know, Alabama's very frustrated how that game went last week against LSU, and I think they're going to take it, whether Tua plays or plays a lot or plays 100%, it doesn't matter who's out there, San Diego. Just let those grocery catching dogs that Alabama has on the outside. It's going to be a long day. Roll Tide.
Indiana at Penn State.
Oh, if we want to talk about a sneaky team, San Diego, the Indiana Hoosiers, they are a team under Tom Allen, who's going bowling already. Kind of a under the radar team. They're really the only game they really struggled against this year was against Ohio State, and who hasn't struggled against Ohio State? So I expect this game to kind of come down to the wire, especially Penn State focusing on their big matchup next week against Ohio State. But since Penn State did lose last week against Minnesota, I don't think they're going to have a two-game losing streak, so I'm going to pick the Nittany Lions to get back on track.
Florida at Missouri.
Chom Gators, I think, like we said, they got a two-game losing streak against Missouri. You got to get back on track, keep our title hopes alive, and I think they're going to, roll right over the Tigers, even if Kelly Bryant does play for Missouri.
Michigan State and Michigan.
Is there a more disappointing team in the country than Michigan State? Is it time for Mike D'Antonio to step aside and not push blood back into Sparty? But those questions will be asked after the season. But tomorrow will be all Wolverines.
Navy at Notre Dame.
Here's an interesting fact, Santiago. A 273 game home sellout streak will be ended tomorrow as when the midshipmen visit Notre Dame, which is kind of odd, Santiago. This is a sneaky good game. The midshipmen are 7-1, Santiago. Their only loss being on a Thursday night in Memphis. So you would think a game, one of the four games this week between two top 25 teams would draw a good crowd, but I guess not. And I'm not quite sure how this game really is going to go, but I just think Notre Dame's got more talent, and I think they end up winning this game.
Kansas at Oklahoma State.
It's hard to go against my man Myles, but Oklahoma State is a very good team. Trevor Howard's a great running back, and I think they'll win this game pretty easily.
Wisconsin at Nebraska.
The Huskers are not who we thought they were going to be, and I think Jonathan Taylor is going to run wild over them, so I'm going to think the Badgers keeping their Big Ten West hopes alive.
Georgia at Auburn.
The 127th meeting between these two Deep South rivals. We talked about it 50-50, but I'm going to go with the Orange and Blue and War Eagle.
Wake Forest at Clemson. ACC Classic.
Santiago, if Wake Forest had won last week, this game would be epic, Santiago. But they ended up falling flat against Virginia Tech. If they had won, this would be a game, that would decide the division to see who goes to the ACC championship. But, obviously it doesn't matter if that happened or not. Clemson will roll, but, there's a little less intrigue in this game. But Clemson, I think, wins by at least 4 touchdowns.
Texas at Iowa State.
Iowa State, so close to almost pulling off a big upset last week. They were down by 14 points with 4 minutes left. I thought it was over. I flip on the TV, and there you go. They're coming back for a 2-point conversion to win the game that just fell short. And then here comes Texas, who came back, against Kansas State and won at the last second. They're two evenly matched teams, but I think Iowa State wins this game.
Minnesota versus Iowa at Iowa.
Minnesota's playing so well right now. Iowa, they have a great defense, And Nate Stanley, I think, is a very good quarterback for Iowa. I just really don't know what's going on with the Hawkeyes right now offensively, but they're struggling. So I'm going to say the Gophers keep their undefeated season alive.
The Gophs. LSU at Ole Miss.
I think I talked about this earlier. I think this game will come down to the fourth quarter, not necessarily come down to the wire, but I think it'll be a one-score game going in the fourth quarter, but I think the score will be misleading because I think LSU will pull ahead late and win by at least 2 scores. But so I'm going to say go Tigers.
Big 12 showdown, Oklahoma at Baylor.
This is a case of my head versus my heart. My heart says go Baylor. My head says I don't think they have enough offense. But usually, all cases with major decisions in my life, I'm going to go with my heart. I'm going to go Baylor.
Baylor pulls the upset, pushes Oklahoma a little down on the rankings, but don't worry. They'll be okay.
They will be okay, Senator.
Chip Kelly's UCLA at Utah.
Here's an interesting fact, Santiago. UCLA controls their own destiny to go to the Pac-12 championship. If they win out, they will be your Pac-12 South Division winners, but that ain't happening, Santiago. The Utes are too good, too strong, too talented to lose to UCLA.
Is Utah a force to be reckoned with?
Absolutely, Santiago. One bad Friday night in SoCal is keeping the team from being, top every week nationally. But, they're still hanging in there. So good.
And lastly, for college football, Arizona at Oregon. Ryan. It's Ryan in there. Ryan did not make it to the show. Did not finish it off. He might be out. It feels like he's online. Ryan? Let's give him another call, guys. We give some second chances here. If not, we'll close out the show. He did not predict Arizona and Oregon, which I think he'll say Oregon, but we'll see what happens. His phone might have died. Well, it's ringing right now. Ryan.
Hey, Santiago. Sorry, I lost you for a second.
It's okay. Arizona at Oregon.
All right. We're hoping Oregon stays clean, and I think they will. And I think Arizona is just having a rough year right now. So I think the attack of the quack keeps it going.
Is this Oregon's year?
What'd you say?
Is this Oregon's year?
Things are shaping up for Santiago. I don't know. I think the team, they got their quarterback. They got a good amount of talent. Well, some of it's young. I think they got to strike while the iron's hot. And I do think this is their year.
Jacksonville Jaguars at Indianapolis Colts with the Colts that have Brissett is playing this Sunday. Jacoby Brissett.
Awesome. I think the Nick Foles. I got to go with my man Nick Foles. I'm going to say the Jaguars win.
Liberty alum. Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins.
Oof. It's been a couple of rough weeks in the best way possible for the Dolphins, winning the last 2 games, ruining their dreams of a perfect season. But I do think the Bills will end that winning streak this week.
The Dallas Cowboys at the Detroit Patriots.
The Detroit Lions?
Yeah, yeah. I'm saying that because they have a lot of former Patriot players there.
Okay, as long as we're on the same thing. I think the Cowboys get back on track and, against the Jeff Driscoll-led Detroit Lions.
Dual battle, quarterback battle. Houston at the Ravens. LaShawn Watson versus Lamar Jackson.
I'm gonna go Houston.
Houston wins in Baltimore.
Like I said, I think Baltimore is a better team, maybe, but I think
Houston has to win.
It's a big game for Houston.
The Saints at the Bucks.
Can the Saints get back on the winning track after being upset by the Atlanta Falcons last week? I do think they do.
Broncos at the Vikings.
Ooh, again, put my head in my heart, but like I said, the heart always wins. Go Broncos.
Broncos are coming back into form. Arizona, Kyler Murray at Garoppolo 49ers.
I think the only way this San Francisco loses this game is that they have too much of licking their wounds over, that great Monday night game that, they end up coming a little bit short against the Seahawks. So I'm gonna say the 49ers win.
The Patriots visit the Eagles. Super Bowl rematch.
Patriots.
And Sunday Night Football, Chicago at the LA Rams at the LA Coliseum.
Two teams that have been fairly disappointing, especially the Bears. They had division hopes, title hopes, and they're all flushed on their toilet already this year, Santiago. The Rams are still kicking. It doesn't look good, but I think they do get this victory.
Something kind of disappointing to see the Rams going through this, little of a dip. But of course, Gurley, if he's not in, now we can tell the Rams are not as strong as what they were last year. But random question: who is your favorite Happy Gilmore character? You got Shooter McGavin, you got Chubbs, you got Mr. Larson, or Virginia Vinite?
Oh, I got to go with Chubbs, man. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. Classic Adam Sandler. But yeah,
Chubbs,
definitely a Chubbs guy.
Chubbs is winning by 50%. Shooter McGavin is at 33%. Mr. Larson is at 17%, and Virginia Vinette is at 0.
No one likes the lovers in those movies.
Ryan, what is the best way to reach you to talk to you about Mason Rudolph?
Mad Dog Report 18 on Twitter.
And you can follow us on the Sportscast, thesportscast.net, or on Twitter at the Sportscast1. We'll be live tweeting college games. We'll probably be live tweeting 10:30 at night if it's nothing to do. Arizona at Oregon, big game. Every game Oregon's playing this season is going to be a tough one. Even the Beavers are going to be a tough one. And of course, we'll be following Georgia and Auburn because Florida's fate relies on Auburn as of right now.
We're huge Auburn fans this weekend.
And of course, Alabama too. Alabama's hoping for Ole Miss to beat LSU.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, when we talk about Alabama, it's got that big game against Auburn at the end of the season, but yeah, it's just kind of a weird feeling there. Again, it's kind of like 2 years ago. They really don't control their own destiny going in toward the end of the year. They're going to need a little bit of chaos.
A lot of chaos. A little different year for Alabama. Yeah. LSU, if another team dominates in the SEC West, it's not good for Alabama because Alabama's has dominated that part of the conference for a while now. But LSU looks promising. And anyways, Ryan, we got to go because I got clients calling me. And you got to pay bills and you got to go see Khalid today. So
all right.
have a great weekend. Roll Tide.
Go Gators.